All right, we have Miss Carol Reese herself. She's the horticultural specialist with UT Extension. We're going to be talking about landscape planning. So where do we need to start with that?
Well, I think a lot of people think about it in a lot of, I always think that the first thing they should do is start from inside the house looking out the windows. I think unfortunately a lot of people go outside and look at the house. And I think a lot of it should not necessarily even about what it looks like, but that they should consider what I want that landscape to do for my family. In a dream world, how are you going to utilize your outdoor space? And there's so many ways that it could serve you. If you like to do outdoor grilling or entertaining, if you need a place to play sports with the kids, if you've got pets. A lot of people now like to grow their own food and vegetables and herbs and have edible landscaping space. And of course, my passion is gardening for wildlife, so that's a thing. But I think all that should come first with make that landscape serve your family and your lifestyle, make it a happy place for you to live, and then think about how to define that space for those needs.
Okay. Now let's talk about foundation plantings and its origins.
Well, it was started really because in the old days, a lot of our houses started way up high off the ground, you know, to keep them away from the termites and the wood rot, wooden floors and such. And if you look at European homes or even old style homes in this country, they did not have the foundation plantings. That was a recent, probably about the Victorian era is when it began. So they began to do it so that the house didn't look like it was floating up in the air, and now it's simply a bad habit. And so people are sentenced to pruning their shrubs. And there's no way that that serves their lifestyle. In fact, I think it's a detraction from their lifestyle. All that time you could spend out enjoying your landscape, instead you've got to keep those shrubs from swallowing your windows. And why? Why do we do this? You know I taught landscape design with an English woman, and she said, you Americans slam all the shrubbery against the house, and you put an oak on either side of the sidewalk, and you think that's a landscape design. And she actually defined landscape as defining outdoor space for user needs.
For user needs.
So every family is going to have different situation, pets, kids, elderly, whatever it is that you like to do. So I think every family could be put into the same house in the same landscape and should have something different.
Sure. Wow. I wonder why we do that. Yeah, we do slam everything up.
Yeah. So then once you've defined those needs, and I say just do a simple balloon sketch. I don't go with all that, do a detailed landscape plan, because for one thing, it's very difficult. I think it's easier to design on site. But say you wanted to define different areas of your landscape for different uses, that this is going to be where I'm going to grow edibles, and this is where the kids and pets are going to play. Then you're sort of like building a house. You're going to define it with walls, which may be actually structural, or they may be plants. You might even think about ceiling. You either have open sky because you want the sunlight on your vegetables or your rose garden, or you want shade because it's where you're going to hang out and grill in the afternoon and want people to sit outside and enjoy. So that will determine your sky, your roof rather, then your walls, and then your floor. Is your floor going to be turf because you want to run and play and need a place for the pets, or do you want to have a no-mow landscape?
Yeah.
That's a great way to go in the South. I always quote my old friend Plato Tulliadis. That the easiest garden to have in the South is the woodland garden, because the South wants to be woods. So we know that's true. If we plow a field and leave and come back in a few decades, we're going to have a woodland. So woodland gardens need some work and some editing, certainly, but they're certainly easier to work in than the hot, sunny garden.
Sure.
So.
Sure. Now let me ask you this then. The average homeowner is probably thinking, I can't design my landscape. I mean, where do they need to go to get the resources to be able to do this?
Well, the Master Gardener classes, I think I show, of course I teach your landscape design class and show lots of slides that demonstrate these ideas. But I say, look out your own window, over your sink, wherever you spend time, and if you don't like what you're seeing, you're the artist in charge. So block those things you don't enjoy seeing. If nothing out there you enjoy, create something, a vignette for you to enjoy through the seasons. And I always tell people to think about all 4 seasons that you can enjoy. But you're the artist in charge of your views. So just start there. And what's your priority area? You know, pick one and just start there and begin to work. And also, I don't want people to be afraid, because I keep hearing this right plant, right place thing, you know. It makes it sound like you've got to get it right the first time, and then your landscape will be perfect for here and forever. And that's just not true. It's going to change over time. So your needs out of it. Plants get bigger than the tag said.
Yes.
Areas that used to be shady become sunny when a windstorm comes through. And we change our house.
Yeah.
We
sure do.
redesign our house. We put a window in. We change the floor. We paint. You can move plants. You can cut them down. You can add to. So I know you don't want to have to do a lot of that, but it's going to happen. And one of the great comforting things I read was every great garden's been in the wheelbarrow 3 times. So I think that's one thing. If I can do anything, is just relieve people's fear to just get out there and try something.
Yeah.
Now, are there times to hire a professional? Absolutely.
Sure.
I don't want to do a whole lot of work to drainage or build structures. And also, I think every time I've ever hired a professional, they gave me an idea I hadn't thought about.
Right.
So just having another brain in on there can be a good idea. So that might be a place to start, just to pay somebody to come out and do consulting.
Okay. But yeah, I definitely want to ask you that question because I get it a lot. People are, well, I don't know anything about landscape design. How do I go about doing this? So it can be relatively easy, or it can be as hard as you want to make it, right?
Yes.
Just kind of depends on what you want.
And I start, people say drag hoses around to define beds. Hoses are heavy.
Yeah.
I like to use that light plastic rope you can buy at Walmart or wherever.
Nylon ropes.
Yeah, and just tie it to a couple of stakes and hammer it out. Define your beds, and bigger is always better. You're going to fill them up faster than you think. And then just put some stakes in the ground where you think you want the plants to go.
That's
and write
smart.
the names on them and move them around and make adjustments. It's really not rocket science.
Yeah.
I say anybody who can design a beautiful interior room or can do a great flower arrangement, same principles. No matter what field of study you're in or what art form, even music has similarities. Because you want some structure, some melody line, some rhythm, and then you want some improvisation on that. And the improvisation is where it starts to get kind of fun, That's when you start getting into the pretty stuff instead of the functional stuff.
So you can have music in your landscape.
Yes.
I like that concept.
Yeah, because think about the boring ones that you see. You've seen one of those.
Right.
And if you sang that, it would be na 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 na
Yeah.
na.
I like that.
We don't want that. And also, I think a lot of people think they've got to have grass. When the shady landscape really loans itself to not having grass, and that moss can be a beautiful asset. And a mossy floor as your flooring can be fantastic in the woodland garden. More people are getting into that now.
Yeah, they are. All right, well, thank you for that information.
Okay.
All right. I hope that'll be a good start, for our homeowners who are
Yeah.
interested in landscape designing.
Good.
All right.
Me already, so.
Oh, good.